All right. Well, let's, as they say, get this show on the road. There's that. Okay. We're almost there. That's good. Happy days. And people are turning up. My goodness me. I always love that when I put on a webinar and people actually show up. Oops. So, get rid of that. Welcome, everybody. We're here to talk about accounting. Now, very quickly, this is not going to be a deep dive. Hang on. Let's just get rid of that. This is not going to be a deep dive into all of the technicalities and the intricacies of cloud accounting systems. Okay, we've got more or less an hour, less than more. And to do that requires a full day workshop. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have a brief chat about four of the big cloud, or the big three cloud accounting systems, and an Australian version, which I feel is as good as. And there's a bit of a chat about some of the other players who don't have a lot of market penetration, and in my experience from using them, aren't as good as the others for various reasons. And at the end of it all, I'm going to give you a recommendation which I think will be fundamentally not what you're expecting, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Hang on a second. You'll be really old-fashioned about this, you know. And I'll tell you what, I love this technology stuff. We're supposed to be all over it, and yet today, that's the screen I want. There we go. It was hiding in plain sight. There, go, accounting, and you. All right. Now, as I said, we're going to talk about four of the more popular ones, so the big three plus an Australian version, and just a little chat about some of their apps and what they can and can't do for you. Now, let's see what's on the next slide. Which one? Let's just pause here for a second and talk about some fundamentals, right? Before we get into the technical stuff, let's just talk about the fundamentals. You can rock back in your chair, put your feet up on the desk and get comfortable, because I believe, I firmly believe, and I have for years preached, that you need to be comfortable with your accounting systems and with your numbers and with what's going on in your business. So get comfortable now, because we're going to have a chat about just being relaxed about what's going on. The whole point of what we do here at Digital Solutions is to get you comfortable with your technology. You don't have to be an expert, and I certainly don't expect anybody to be an expert with their accounting system. Like, that's what you pay your accountant and your bookkeeper for. Right? But what you need to be is you need to be comfortable with it. Okay, you need to be able to look at the numbers and understand not only what they're saying to you, but where they came from. So it all clicks and you understand what's going on in the business. If you want to explore that further, by all means, get in touch, plug into the program, and we can run some sessions on that for you. But the underlying basis is you need to be comfortable with your numbers, which means you need to understand them, which is why you need an accounting system that makes sense to you. Now, point one with your accounting system is ask your bookkeeper what they use. Okay, if you don't have a bookkeeper, that's fine, right? No dramas. If you're doing it yourself, that's great. Sit back and we'll talk for another 40 odd minutes about that. But if you do have a bookkeeper, like an external bookkeeper, ask them what they use, and use that, because honestly, that will be the easiest solution long term for producing results that everybody gets on time and can be explained to you so you're comfortable with what's going on. If you don't have a bookkeeper and you're doing it yourself, then ask your accountant what they use. My bet, and I'll put some hard-earned money on it, is that they'll recommend Xero, because Xero use accountants as part of their sales funnel for good reasons, and it's a good system, right? And if the accountant's comfortable with it, then by all means use it. Now, my accountant doesn't care. Okay, I had this conversation with him a few years ago, and he just went, He doesn't care. He uses a big system in the back end, a big enterprise version of Sage. I said, mate, look, just give me a USB or a DVD with the numbers on it, and we'll just deal with it. He doesn't care to translate anything. So that's fine. So we use what we use. All right. In fact, what we use is we actually don't even use cloud accounting in my business. We use a bought version of MyOb that'll last us for another couple of years. And after that, we'll talk about what we're going to use coming out of this. But that's an entirely different conversation. All right, so there's 3 bits of advice. Straight up, get comfortable. All right, relax, chill. You've got to understand where your numbers are coming from, even if you don't have to put them in yourself and you don't understand the intricacies of the system. You've got to be comfortable with what they mean and what they're telling you about your business. And talk to your bookkeeper, talk to your accountant, and get some feedback on where they're coming from. Because 9 times out of 10, it's a lot easier to use what they're using and keep it nice and simple. It keeps the cost down, it saves translation errors, and everybody's on the same page. Let's assume, for the sake of the discussion, that your bookkeeper doesn't care, and your accountant, he's like my accounting firm. And he looked at me and she looked at me and they looked back at me and they went, "We don't care, mate. Just give us the numbers." Like, they really couldn't care less, which is fine by me because we've got a good system. So the big 3 in the ring in. All right, now the big 3 obviously is Xero, QuickBooks, MyOb, and the Australian ring is SASU. And I'll tell you why I put that in a second. A few of the alternatives, and believe me, there are a ton out there. There literally are. Some of them are free, like Wave, but it has its own payment system you have to kind of use, which pays for it. So they don't get you here, but they get you there, sort of conversation. But FreshBooks, Sage, Zoho Books, and Reckon are the ones that come up again and again and again. Wave, not much market penetration. Peach, it's industry specialised. Fishbowl, it's more an inventory system for manufacturing, kind of. But in terms of pure small business accounting systems, that what you're looking at there on the screen, that's the bulk of the market. And the one in the middle, the big 3 plus SASU, they're the bulk of the bulk, right? Particularly the big 3. Now, there's reasons for that. Right? Xero, they were really the first to punch into cloud accounting. All right. So, and they did that via accounting firms. They were very quick to recognise, started in New Zealand, very quick to recognise that going through accounting firms is the way to get to the businesses, obviously, and away they went. MyOb were the last cab off the rank, very slow to convert to cloud accounting, and Xero just ate up that market share. And QuickBooks, which was first sold here through Reckon, Intuit, which is the US firm that owns QuickBooks, went, no, we're going to do it ourselves, develop their own cloud system, and came back in, and they're now quite a legitimate competitor. Now, that's you. Australian built, Australian supported. I reckon they've got as much grunt as the other 3, so I put them in there because, in my mind, they're a legitimate quality competitor. Right. Now, hang on, we'll just chat about that. Oh, sorry, the 4th thing you need to consider, I almost forgot. Thank goodness I did some slides. How big are you going to be in 5 years' time? I'm not too stressed about the next 12 months or 2 years. That's really neither here nor there in terms of your accounting system. But in 5 years, where are you going to be at? And that's not just sales volume or how much inventory you're going to have, how many product lines you're going to be selling. Are you going to be more online than face-to-face, bricks and mortar? I'm talking about things like employee numbers. How many sites are you going to have? Are you going to have people on the road? Like, what's the structure of your business going to look like? Are you going to have people out there running? Have a good hard think about where you're going to be in 5 years, because the system you want to set it up now not only has to be something you can get comfortable with now, something you can use now, it needs to be something that in 5 years' time, you're still using it, because switching systems to something bigger or more robust, or something that has more features that suits where you're at, is the Latin for it. An absolute pain, okay? It's an issue. It's a real issue, all right? So have a think about where you're at now and start looking at systems and thinking like, okay, in 5 years' time, we're going to have a couple of guys or girls on the road. We want to have another site in Sydney. We need to be able to communicate remotely, but they're cloud accounting systems, so that's not much of an issue. But having salespeople, in a sec, but that's one of my pet things, is that when you've got people on the road, or even if you've got directors or employees who are using their cars for business, mapping out that work usage can be, logbooks. Seriously, we're in the digital age, we're using logbooks. There's ways of doing it, all right? So have a think about that. Have a think about support. All right, have a think about integrations. Okay? And by integrations, for those of you that's a really word that means nothing, For example, you might be using QuickBooks, okay? And initially, QuickBooks had a lot of trouble exporting, had some trouble exporting to Excel. There's now an add-in you can put in there that just takes the data out for you and actually makes your cash flows, if you're running stuff or reporting in Excel live. That's pretty cool. Those sort of integrations. Xero has a ton of integrations, a ton of little programs that somebody else has written that will let Xero talk to whatever system you've got over here, whether it's your inventory system, you may have a specialized manufacturing CAD/CAM thing, there's pricing data, or needs stock levels so you can map out something on the other side. You want to integrate with your POS. That's a big thing. Okay. Think about integrations. Think about where it's, right, without diving into everybody's business online. Have a think about where you're at. And by all means, the last slide is my contact details. And the reason I make it the last slide is because fundamentally I want to torture you. I want to make you sit there and wait till the end so you get the email address so you can fire any questions at me that you don't want to discuss here in front of everybody else. Okay. So cost. Now cost is a biggie, all right? And this is where some of these things can get away from you. All right. Now this, as the screen says, this is as at the 8th of September. Now, thing to note about cost with all these packages is there's always a deal on the go. Okay, I've got 30-day free trials of all of them. That's cool. Okay, I literally could have gone for 6 months without having to pay for an accounting system because they all talk to each other. Actually, no, I had to put them in a certain order. There was one that wouldn't talk to another one. So I put them in a certain order so I could roll the data this way. I mean, literally, you could get almost a year's accounting. If you sat there and changed email addresses, you could flip the files over and you get a year's free accounting. However, you've got to learn a slightly different way of doing everything, which is irritating. But from the point of view of trying a system to see if, once you've done all your research to see if it's actually going to work for you, you can do that for free. That is super cool. Very, very handy. And they're also doing deals. You usually get 3 months for free and then you're in, or you get 3 months at a 50% discount. They will do something to get you in because once you're in with the system, they've pretty much got you for a fair while, which is fine. It's probably the wrong word to use. Once you're a customer, you're going to be a customer for a while because you'll get used to using the system. It will work for your business and changing is an issue. Okay, it's like changing banks. It's kind of easy to do, but not really, but it's actually a hassle. Right? You don't want to go through the hassle if you really, really don't have to. Okay. Now, when you look at the pricing, there's one thing that stands out, and that is my old friend MyOb. The reason MyOb's 120 a month is because I added the inventory module to it so that we're comparing Xero with inventory to MyOb with inventory to QuickBooks with inventory to SaaSU with inventory, and the ability to handle stock levels. If you're not using inventory on MyOb, if you're, for example, a service business like my business, then you don't need the inventory. The price comes back to, it was 40 something. So it's a bit less than the others. Now, the trick with MyOb though is you've got to pay for insurance. There's no pay. You could have 100 staff, it doesn't matter. Whereas with QuickBooks, you're paying $5 an employee at that time for the privilege of having them on your payroll. Okay, and that's the one-touch payroll, by the way. Xero, same thing. You get a couple of staff for nothing, but above that, you start paying for extra staff. SaaSU, cheaper than the others, and it includes up to 20 staff. So it's starting to look like a real bargain. And that's interesting. Okay, that's very interesting when you look at what it can do. And the fact that fundamentally, and here's the trick, boys and girls, gather around. Uncle Kelly wants to tell you a story about double entry accounting. Double entry accounting is double entry accounting. It is what it is. All these programs do pretty much the same thing, the same way. There are very, very few differences in the way they go about the transactional input. They kind of use different words occasionally, but it means exactly the same thing. So once you've used, when you trial them, and this is the thing I discovered, and admittedly, I'm coming from a reasonable knowledge base, but when I was trialing them, I'm going, once you understand that word means that word, it's the same thing. Same. There's very little difference in terms of using them. The real differences come down to support, and your mileage may vary on that. The experience that I've had is that MyOb support is okay. Right? Sometimes they're a little bit slow getting back to you, but they do get back to you. Xero are okay. QuickBooks are okay. SaaSU was good. Okay. Reckon not. I'll talk about those later, but it was a varying experience with the smaller guys. Noting that QuickBooks supports is in India. SAS was in Australia. Xero's is overseas as well. And MyObs, well, I'm guessing, I thought, from the sounds of it, they were also an overseas call center dealing with it. But the turnaround time wasn't too bad. So, cost-wise, not a lot. Cost-wise, not a lot between. Let's come back to that slide. Not a lot between. Okay, it's going to come down to how many staff do you run. That will have an impact. What sort of free deal can you do? That will save you some money, which will pay off over time. And most importantly, what did we talk about at the start? What's your growth prospects? Because if you're looking at setting up multiple sites, or you need to have multiple users, or you're looking at growth with staff, then that'll have a big hit. Are you a business that runs inventory? Straight away, MyOb is costing you a ton of money each month. Sorry, MyOb is costing you twice what the others are costing you. That may be a little bit, that may be a lot in the grand scheme of things. But if you're a small business who needs an inventory solution, MyOb is not necessarily, is just pricing themselves out of the market. Now, some fun things to think about. Ease of use. As I said before, they're actually more or less the same. The one thing I found was that with their dashboards, which is that first screen you come to, it's got pretty graphs on it showing you pretty much what you want to see. Do you want to see your profit and loss when you log on there in front of you? Do you want to see the status of your bank accounts as well? Do you simply want a graph showing sales for the month or sales year to date? These are all custom. You can customize these. You can make them look pretty much like what you want to see. However, the MyOb dashboard was a little less twitchy, a little less tweaky, a little less customizable than the others. However, they've all got that nice, easy interface. So they can give you, are you sensing a theme here? Okay, when you look at them, they are very, very similar because they're run by people who are not silly, and they look at the competitors and go, we can't get too far away from that in terms of making it complex. So we've got to make it as simple as possible. So they're racing each other to the simplest possible solution, and they're pretty much all there. Okay. Cash flow projections and budgets. Now, just bear with me for a second. I've got some notes here on another screen, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just reading what I wrote before because I didn't really want to have to remember 42 pieces of stuff. Okay. Hang on. Let's check my notes because there was some difference with cash flow. I do recall. Here we go. Now, cash flow. They all have a cash flow projection or a budget function. Okay. Now, two things. Okay. I love counting off things because I can keep them in line. Two things. Firstly, if you're not doing cash flow projections or budget projections for your business, seriously, you should be. Okay. If you want a hand with that in terms of how to build those things, get in touch. Okay. We'll plug into the system. We'll run sessions on that. That's easily covered off. Secondly, the beautiful thing about using the cash flow projection function or the budget function in your accounting system is that it's using historical data. So it says, okay, based on what you've done previously, we reckon you will do this. Now, all three of them, and SASU, all four, have that functionality. Okay, the big thing is that QuickBooks they all have a 12-month functionality, except QuickBooks has a 2-year functionality. So you can actually look a little bit further down the track. Okay, and it has an add-in where, like we've got integrations before, a little add-in that they've written themselves that enables you to export that data out to Excel. Now that's very cool because my personal belief is that you should do a 12-month cash flow that is quite focused, that you put a lot of thought into, and then behind that you should put a 3-year cash flow, and then roll that out over the 3-year periods, just updating it every 12 months. So you've actually got a bit of a longer timeline on your business, and you're thinking a fair way down the track. Now, one thing, just while we're talking about ease of use and functionality, is that with Xero, the inventory solution, it's not that flash. Okay, so flip side of that is there's a ton of inventory integrations or add-ins that you can use that will give you a better inventory solution for Xero. However, you've got to pay for them. So if we come back and just bear with me for a second, let's just come back to the costs at $54 a month. Let me think. The best inventory integration I found for Xero was something like $9 a month. It was either 9 or 15. So you're getting up into the 60s. So it's starting to look very similar to the QuickBooks pricing, but still much less than MyOb and a bit more than SASU. Okay. So, sorry. That's why it's budgets and projections. And the reason I made that a separate heading, like I said, in my mind, that's very important. Okay. Now, app functionality. Okay. Do they have any cute tricks? Oops. They certainly do. Okay. Now, Quickbooks app, simple, easy to use. You can accept payments on the road. You can pay people on the road. It's a beautiful thing. QuickBooks, zero, same. Accept payments on the road. You can pay people on the road. It is, again, a beautiful thing. MyOb. You need two apps with MyOb. One app to pay people, one app to receive money, to record people paying you. Please don't ask me why. I've got no idea why everybody else can put it into one app. So you simply go, there's my accounting system, payment recorded, thanks for the money. Or there you go, you're paid in one app. MyOb has two. Hey, I'll tell you one really cute thing though, when I talk about apps having cute tricks. And let's just come back to the whole, what if you've got people on the road scenario, or you're a director like myself who does a fair bit of driving, or you've got staff who do things from time to time. Has a mileage function. It's got a business trip function. So you sort of get in the car, say, yep, it's a business trip. It's got your car details recorded, start, away you go, come back, stop, logged, done. No logbooks. And no need for an integration or some other trip measuring system that then has to talk to your accounting system and upload the data. It's done on the app. Sorry. Done on the app. Now, some people that impresses, some people it doesn't. For me, that's impressive. That's a very neat trick. So things like that are things that you need to balance out. And if you're doing any business driving, suddenly QuickBooks starts looking real good. Okay. And how intuitive are they? Got some bad news for you here. That's not going to be a deal breaker. They are not terribly intuitive at all. That's a bit harsh. MyOb, which again I use at home, has a simple way of saying pay people, collect money, spend money, and once you understand it, it just makes sense. But you've actually got to get your head around it a little bit, and there's 2 or 3 ways of, in terms of paying people or receiving money, there's 2 or 3 ways you can do it. So it's intuitive, but it's not. Okay, and that's what they're like, is that they've used phrases which most people understand, but you kind of got to get used to it. So if you're expecting to simply open it up and look at it and it goes, yep, that all makes sense. Okay, like Word, for example, to pick, not quite an exact comparison, but you open up Word and you want to start a document, you can find your way around pretty quickly. It all kind of makes sense. The accounting systems, not so much. Okay, on the bright side, they have support. Because they've been around for a while, there is a ton of frequently asked questions that have been answered. That's very cool. The online help, they've got a big knowledge bank that you can tap into. There's also a fair few YouTube videos that you can tap into. And there's people like me who will give you oversight and help you work out some of the trickier things. They're not necessarily intuitive. Okay, it's not that you're going to look at it and go, yep, I get it. You've got to work on it. So when you're looking at putting in place a system like this, put aside some time, budget some time, okay, in your time budget, and to say, okay, I'm going to take an hour just looking at it and reading it and just trying to get a feel for how it works. Because, let's go right back to the start, you need to be comfortable with your system. Okay, you cannot be afraid of your system. And that's the whole point of today's chat, is that these things won't bite you. Okay, 1. 2, if you get something wrong, you're not going to start World War III. You just need to undo a few things and start again. It's not a big deal. It'll be fine. Okay. 4, you're in the cloud. Right? So if your computer shuts down, not a drama. Okay, not a drama at all. And fourth, and more importantly, is that you can import the files from one to the other. So, which, even though I've said they're not necessarily intuitive, but they're not hard to do. If you find one that, even though you've gone along and you've had a crack at it, it's just really not working for you, you can switch the files across with no great drama. The reason I say that, I find that exciting. Okay, from a really boring sort of numbersy sort of background, that's very cool, because it saves you a lot of work. And it saved me a lot of work when we first went into business 15 years ago. We actually started with QuickBooks, right? The early version that was run by the Australian company, I reckon. And I just couldn't get my head around it for a week. I don't know why. It didn't click with me. So I went and bought Mob. And this was in the days where you had to buy your software, okay, which is why I still use Mob, because we actually paid for it. So I own it. Well, no sense in paying a monthly fee if I own the software. And we bought Mob and went, okay, this makes a bit more sense. So we used it, just transferred the data straight across, didn't have to rekey everything. So when you're looking at these, don't be afraid to say, hey, listen, okay, I listened to what Kelby said. I put in place a system he recommended and I hate it. Cool. Trial another one, port your data across. Okay, it'll come across no parameters. Alrighty. So G factor can come down. Let's have a quick chat about the others. All right. We'll start with Sage, okay, top left. Sage has a beautiful user interface, okay? Those first screens you see, it's good. It's really good, but it's pricey if you want to expand and if you want payroll. So it's more expensive than the big four, which is why not a lot of people use it compared to the other four. The bank feed system is also clunky and costs you money. It is not as easy or as intuitive as the others. I really don't know why they designed it that way. I really don't. Okay. Reckon. Now, Reckon used to sell QuickBooks here in Australia. Intuit took it back, so they have eventually now written their own cloud version. Right before that, they were simply selling effectively somebody else's software, and the support by all reports was average with respect to Reckon. Now, it requires a fair bit of setup. Okay, things like quotes. Okay, it's a hidden feature. You've got to dig it out. However, it is cheaper. So if you want to invest the time and you don't need inventory, because that's another third-party add-on, and that will cost you more money, then it's not bad. Okay, to be absolutely frank, Reckon is not bad. Okay, FreshBooks at the lower price points. Okay, if you're looking at spending $15 or $20 a month, $30 a month, FreshBooks it has limited functionality. It's not really set up for dealing with the business to business where you're buying and selling to other businesses. It's more a business to customer type scenario. So if you're in that B2B category, honestly, I would recommend FreshBooks. And as far as I could tell from a month of just kicking it every now and then, it has no automatic BAS calculations. Like, why not FreshBooks? Why don't you do this? Anyway, in the scale of things, it didn't really stack up. It just wasn't strong enough system, to my mind, for the people that we talk to. Zoho books are limited automation, so a fair bit of re-entry and functionality. Again, it integrates with a lot of things, and Zoho in itself is a good CRM system. So if you want to go down that whole integrated package, by all means do it. Okay, Zoho will do a job. It'll do the job for you. Okay, it's just not as good, in my opinion, as the other four. And just to come back one step, because I do this from time to time, something else occurred to me. When you're looking at these in terms of intuitive, cute tricks, and do they give you the data easily, those four, much of a muchness. Okay, I really didn't talk much about SaaSU because it's as good as the others. Okay, it's not super intuitive, but it's no more or less intuitive than the others. Okay, the SaaSU app is a nice app to use. Does, again, pays people, accepts money, one app, clean, happy days. Okay, and produces some reports for you, which all the other apps do. You can have a look at where things are going. Right? You don't have massive amounts of functionality, but it's an app on a mobile phone, for crying out loud. Okay, you don't need it to have massive amounts of functionality. You need it to do those basic, I'm on the road, I need to pay somebody, I need to see where things are up to, functionality. It does that for you. It doesn't have any cute tricks in its app. It just is like this. Is what it is. It's a view into your accounting system. You can do a couple of limited things, which is really all you need to do when you're out and about. And the major functionality is sitting in the cloud in the desktop function. Okay. So, summary. Now, this has gone through pretty quickly because you actually haven't hammered me with questions, which I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Anyway, let's summary. Number one thing, apart from be relaxed and comfortable with your numbers, is that free trials are your friend. Don't be afraid to download them and try them. Okay, you're not going to blow up your system. You're not going to lose all your data. Okay, and you're not going to be locked into a contract for life. They're going to have your credit card details forever. It simply doesn't happen. What you do is you get the ability to have a solid working taste of what they're offering. Does it actually fit? Not only fit your business, Does it have the capacity to grow with your business without costing you an arm and a leg? And is it robust enough to handle mistakes? Does the app give you the intuitive functionality you need on the road? And my answer to that is, with those big four, yes. Even Mile, even though they've got two apps, which I find fundamentally really annoying, like it's just stupid. Even that, their apps, they're nice to use. Like all four of them, the apps are nice to use. Okay, there's no tricks. It's a very simple way of paying people, getting paid, having a look at where you're at. Okay, they do that nicely, cleanly. Just remembering that QuickBooks has that little cute trick with the mileage calculator, the little business trip functionality. I'm kind of a fan of that. It's a nice trick. Now, the big thing is growth. It always is in business when you're looking at systems, is it's not just where you're at today. Okay, it's where you're going to be 3-5 years down the track. When you're getting a system now, you don't necessarily have to buy something now that is going to be big enough to do what you want to do in 5 years' time. Okay, that's, to my mind, that doesn't make sense. What you want to look for is a system that will enable you to grow to that point without you then being locked into a system that's going to cost you an absolute bomb every month. Okay. And the reason that I counsel you to take that approach is that I look at CRMs, and I'll be having a chat about CRMs later in the week. Okay. And I'm looking at something like HubSpot as an example. And this is not me picking on HubSpot, just it is what it is. Their free version, which I use, is good, like seriously good. Okay. But once you start to scale up, it starts to cost. Okay. Once you add in HubSpot sales and their marketing drives, it starts to cost. And you really need to be of scale to justify the expense. With accounting systems, it's the same mental space you need to be in. How big are we going to get? How much, pardon me, how much is that going to cost? And is that a reasonable expense for a business of that size? And that will come back to your budgeting, which comes back to which accounting system you use to extract the figures from. And are you going to do just a 1 or 2 year budget in the accounting system, or are you going to extract them and put them into Excel? Okay. From that point of view, I think QuickBooks has the best extraction from memory. From the ones I've used, QuickBooks is the cleanest with the extraction, but at the end of the day, they'll all give you the numbers, and that is not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, you're only going to pull them out every now and then, run your budgets, and away you go. Okay, and how mobile do you need to be? So that's the third thing there, is that I must admit I've talked about the apps a little bit, and that's because obviously I do a lot of stuff on the road and we're a very mobile society. But if you're not really out and running about, then the whole QuickBooks trick doesn't matter. The fact that my app has 2 apps is completely irrelevant. Okay, so just think about the how, where, and when you're going to use it. And that's the big thing, is that if you're only going to be touching it once a week, and a lot of it's automated in terms of downloading bank statements and automatically reconciling things for you, admittedly, that takes some setting up at the start. So does everything. It's not like, you're not going to get a free ride here, I guarantee you. There will be some work involved. But a lot of the reconciliation is automatic. So the amount of actual work you need to put in it, once you get it set up, the amount of work you've got to put in your accounting system is actually kind of quite limited, and you'll get quality data. The question is, where are you going to be doing that work? What sort of data do you need? Think about that sort of functionality. Now, very simply, for those of you, okay, and that's pretty much it. Okay, if you've got any questions, by all means, fire up in the chat now. You should be able to do that. I don't see why not. Yep, you're all there. Fire them up in the chat. But for those of you who are not part of the new digital solutions package, okay, this program is provided by AusIndustry, federal government that pays for it. It's one of their great hidden secret programs. Now it's 7 hours of curated mentoring and advice and webinars and one-to-one training and all the really cool stuff that you actually need in small business. Well, those of you who been part of the program from the 1st of January, you can still access this. If you go to the Business Station website, click on register, pop your details in there, and there'll be a payment system. It's $44 for the 7 hours. Okay, $40 plus G. Punch your details in, and your details will then come through to our customer service team. They'll have a look at where you're at in terms of, geographically where you're located, and they'll certainly find either the closest advisor to you, or an advisor that you've nominated, and they'll be in touch and they'll start setting up some one-on-one training on things that really matter to you. Like it might be that I've bought you silly with accounting, you don't want to hear from me ever again, but you really want to know about some Facebook ad strategy. You need to know about Google My Business. How can you make that work? You want a LinkedIn strategy. You're looking at a better website. You certainly want a better user experience for the people coming in. You want to know more about CRMs. All those questions will be dived into, and our CSOs will come up with a strategy for you. Okay, I'll put you in touch with an advisor. We'll map out the 7 hours, and we'll try and basically lift your business for you. Okay, give you some training, make things better so that you can actually have a more profitable life in business, which is the whole point of the exercise, I believe. Okay. So, rolling along then, we're going to roll on here. Hello. Here we go. It is the end. Okay. As I said, we're not going to go into those accounting systems in depth because that would take a day to go into 42 different screenshots, and all you're going to see is a variation on a theme because they all do the same thing. Okay, it's double entry accounting. They're all very simple. They're all very similar. Now, the recommendation. All right, forgot about that almost. If you're a bricks and mortar retailer or an online retailer and you're running some sort of inventory, I would suggest that you go with and you've got some staff. Okay, you've got a few staff. I would run with SaaSU or QuickBooks, because at the end of the day, the QuickBooks cost is not the most issue. It's a great system. If you've got a smaller business where it's just you're a sole trader and you're either a service provider or you're a retailer, the small version of SaaSU and the small version of Xero are so close, it's not funny. Okay, now it's also the QuickBooks Micro version is also quite good, but I just think the SaaSU and the Xero are the better ones at that smaller price point. The one that I don't recommend out of the 4 of them is Mild because of the cost of inventory and the added on cost of staff. Okay. Now, there's my contact details. If you've got any more questions that you want to throw at me randomly in some future date, there's my email address. Fire them away. Happy to answer them. No problems at all with that. You've got the information on digital solutions, the Business Station website, which is obviously businessstation.com.au, and that's Business Station spelt with all of the S's in the world. Whack them in the middle there. Have a look, click on the register button, and we will help you basically build your business up, get you more comfortable and sustainable in a whole stack of areas that will really make life a lot easier for you. Thank you for your time. That's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, fire up now. Otherwise, thanks for your time. You'll be sent the recording so I can put you to sleep again in the future, and we'll chat soon. Cheers.